Disclaimer, this podcast is going to be covering topics related to suicide, domestic violence, death, and the death of children. Listener discretion is advised. Hi, welcome to Murder and Movies Podcast, M&M for short.
Not sponsored.
Where once a week we gather around and explore the darker side of pop culture, film, and true crime.
If you can't tell, this is our first episode, which is okay. Yeah, you did a great job. I'm not knocking you. I'm just saying, if you can't tell, this is definitely the first episode of Murder and Movies Podcast. Before, we were kind of girly, which is still up on this channel if you want to go check out any of those episodes. It was me, Elizabeth, and two other ladies. I say ladies, but Izzy's like an infant.
Whole infant.
She just got done breastfeeding, so.
A child.
But now it's me and Elizabeth, and we're going to be doing this shenanigans every Thursday. So if you want to check out any more of our murder in movies, pop culture, supernatural films, all the creepy crap that you look up on Reddit at 12 o'clock at night, we'll be covering that. And you should subscribe.
Yes.
We have a TikTok. We have an Instagram.
We do. Yes. We have a Facebook. That's all we have right now, but go subscribe and follow and like our things.
And since we are new, that means we are open to suggestions. So if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comment box.
Yes.
And we will definitely consider those because we're new and improved.
Today we're talking about deaths at Disney World, Disneyland, Disney various institutions. Which is not something you think about when you're going to the happiest place on earth, that people have died, potentially right where you were standing.
When you think about how many people run in and out of Disney World yearly, I just can imagine how many people they see in a year.
Oh, I'm sure
millions and millions.
Millions, but
crazy.
Now we're going to talk about the people who didn't get to leave Disney World.
Ooh. That's creepy. I like that.
This is like kind of random, but also a fun fact. Not sure how true it is. There's a rumor that no one can technically die on Disney property because what they'll do is they'll perform life-saving measures until you are off their property. So you cannot be declared dead on their properties. So these are cases that they might not have been declared dead on Disney property, but they were dealt a life-ending blow on Disney properties.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Seems like a potential lawsuit in the future that I want to be a part of because that is going to get a lot of money.
Well, that's the thing. You can't die on Disney property, so you can't get sued on Disney. You can't sue Disney.
I say bullcrap. Someone can literally die on Disney property. You just got to go, okay, you know what? I'm not even going to pitch that out there for people.
Yeah. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to talk about was one that I hadn't heard of, which like most of these are, but this one was like weird. And it's a group of people were taken hostage at Disney World. On September 12th, 1992, Alan J. Ferris, a 37-year-old man, smuggled a sawed-off shotgun into Epcot. He waited until after the park was closed, and then when he was eventually asked to leave, he fired 4 shots at security guards. 3 were at one of the guards. All of them missed, and the next was at a group of guards that he eventually took hostage. He held these guards hostage in a bathroom for about 10 minutes, at which point the bathroom was surrounded by police, and Ferris quickly exited the bathroom with the gun. When he was ordered to drop the weapon, he refused, saying, shoot me, you're going to have to kill me." And then when officers refused to fire, he shot himself in the head. He did not actually immediately die after shooting himself in the head and struggled against his arrest because they arrested him. And he actually died on his way to or at the hospital. It wasn't clear which one. The reason he did this was his ex-girlfriend had broken up with him.
Oh my God, here we go.
And she worked as a security guard at Epcot. And they lived in New York. So this man drove from New York to Florida to try and see her, which she refused because she had a court order against him that he could not see her. Because he, in the past, had previously tried to kill himself when she had originally broken up with him.
Why is it all these men that don't know how to deal with a breakup but want to call us women weak?
And
you
like
broke
emotional.
Up with me. I'm gonna drive to Disney World and not shoot anybody. He even messed up shooting himself.
Yeah. Fuck Alan J. Ferris. So I thought that was interesting because, I don't know, when I picture Disney, because I went to college near Disney World, so we went there pretty frequently, and they have like tons of metal detectors. You have to send your bag through a metal detector, like a x-ray machine. So it's crazy to think about a time when they didn't have those precautions and someone could smuggle a whole sawed-off shotgun into a park of children.
Yeah, that was stupid. I wonder what he was thinking he was going to do. Like, he was going there with the potential to find her, where it's like, because you don't love me, somebody's going to die.
Well, I think his original goal was to see her because he was like demanding that she come to him, and she was like, no, you have a gun? And so she didn't. And then he gave up pretty quick too. Like, once the police showed up, they were like, hey, you're surrounded. And he was like, he had hostages. He could have had demands, but he was like, all right, and he just like walked out. So
he's like, fair enough.
Next, I have a bunch of stories. I went down a rabbit hole. So
the fact that there are plenty to work with is very concerning.
And these aren't all of them. These were just the ones that I was like, this is so interesting. So this one is Pluto getting run over, and I shouldn't laugh because someone died, but it's kind of like not.
It's a dog.
It's so sad. I feel so sad for this man, but like. Pluto. February 11th, 2004. Javier Cruz, a 38-year-old man, was dressed as Pluto, and they were getting ready for one of the parades to happen. And the Beauty and the Beast float is composed of 3 sections. So there's the first section, which like has the driver, a middle section, and the end section. During this, Javier went to walk between 2 of the sections for some reason. I think it was the first and the second section, and he got stuck in between them.
So wait, they're like connected, right?
Yeah, so they're like...
It's like 3 sections that are made into one big one.
Kind of. The way I imagined it, because there were no pictures, because why would they take pictures, is like, you know how trains are connected where there's like the ball and...
the
whole
little thing,
joint.
yeah.
I pictured it kind of like that, but there was really like no description. I just pictured it as like 2 trailers at the back of a truck. So Javier went to walk between these, and because he got stuck, his right foot got stuck in between the 2 sections, and he fell. And the way that they communicate to the driver, because it's a big float, like he can't see, he couldn't see past the first part, and he relied on a person on foot who had a radio to like communicate with him. And he was told to move forward by a person on foot. And so he started driving, and almost immediately he gets on the radio, people telling him to stop. And so he immediately stopped. But at that point, it was too late. Javier had already fallen and gotten stuck under the portion of the float. And they brought in hydraulic lifts to try and get the float off of him. But by then, like, it was too late. He had been crushed by this, like, thousands of pound float. He had worked at the park for over 8 years and played the part of Pluto before. But this was, like, a completely freak accident. Like, no one could have seen it coming. There were just so many things that went wrong that, like, this happened.
You would think with him working for so many years, he wouldn't have walked in between the 2. That just seems a recipe for disaster.
I think it was like a choreographed thing where he was supposed to be able to get in between, and the car was stopped when he like first walked through, and then he got stuck, and the car was told to move.
Oh.
So I think if the car hadn't have been told to move, it wouldn't have happened. I think it was something he had done before, and it was a freak accident.
That's a miserable death. Can you imagine? And then the time that it took between he got crushed and them to get those hydraulics. Oh,
yeah, no.
Like, you're just there. You can't do anything. I cannot even fathom what that experience would be like. I don't want to know.
I'm sure it was horrible. And yeah.
I wonder, do they still do that same routine?
Yeah, they do. I think they didn't even cancel the parade that day. I think they just pulled that float from the parade, and they still had the parade go.
Dang, Disney don't care. Yeah. They don't give a crap.
Yeah.
It's like, this parade's going whether you're alive or dead. We'll take either way.
Yeah. The next one is actually kind of a little bit more well-known because it happened in 2015.
All of these are pretty recent.
Yeah. I think I have a few. I think most of them are recent. I didn't go because there aren't as many details for ones that are further back. Mm-hmm. But this one happened in 2015. It happened June 14th of 2015, and it was a little boy was killed by an alligator.
I think this is the one that most people our age probably heard of.
Yeah. This happened outside of the Grand Floridian Resort at an area called Seven Seas Lagoon. There was a movie night happening on this little beach, and this family was there for this movie night. It was happening at dusk, which is unfortunately the primary hunting time for alligators. Basically, they were gathered on the beach to watch this movie, and this family let their 2-year-old little boy, his name was Lane Graves, his family was from Nebraska, they let him just go into the water to play. Literally not that deep. He couldn't swim. He was 2, so he was not deep at all. He went in to get water because he was building a sand castle. So it was a 2-year-old little boy versus a 7-foot alligator. He bent over to get the water for his sand castle when an alligator just came out of the water and grabbed him. His parents were 10 feet away, and his father immediately, upon seeing this, dove into the water to try and wrestle him away from the alligator, including sticking his full arm into the alligator's mouth. The alligator pulled away and immediately began what is called a death roll, which is where alligators just start spinning.
Oh, I've seen that.
To try and, I think it's to break the neck of their victim.
Oh my gosh.
There were no swimming signs posted nearby, literally within feet, but there were no warning signs about alligators.
Real quick, I don't know if you know this or not. So where the water was located, were the alligators part of the natural habitat?
Yeah, so I get into that, but alligators are native to Florida, all of Florida. And Disney tries really hard to keep alligators out of their waters, but if the water connects to a natural source, alligators are going to get in because it's their natural habitat.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure if it was like a man-made lake or whatever that they had made.
I think it was man-made, but it connected to like an actual
water source.
Water source, yeah. But, so there were no swimming signs posted nearby, but there were no warning signs about alligators. However, earlier in the day, multiple people had seen that alligator in the water and had told staff about there being an alligator in that water. The staff were notified, and they were trying to figure out what to do about it because there was this big event about to happen on this bank. In searching for the little boy's body, because it very, very quickly became evident that this was a recovery mission, not a rescue mission, 6 alligators were found in that water within days of this death. And 2 of them fit the size of the alligator that attacked the little boy. They were unable to identify which alligator was responsible as they all had empty stomachs, and they were not able to rule out which it was by bite marks. The body was found intact as the gator was probably startled by the dad fighting back and released the boy, who then went on to die of drowning.
Oh my God. Oh, I see. When I recall this situation happening, I thought the alligator had, the moment it locked on the little boy, the little boy died, and the alligator, just dragged him out.
They were unable to determine whether he died of drowning or crushing, but the fact that his body was found intact, they're like, yeah, there's a chance he died of drowning.
I wonder, did the alligator react out of, territorial instinct or hunger?
Because of his size, the little boy's size,
he probably looked like prey.
They assumed that the alligator just mistook him for prey. The gator may have become used to people being in that location since it was highly trafficked, which would have made it so it wasn't afraid of the fact that there were a bunch of people gathering on the beach, which could have been a reason why he was so willing to attack. Mm-hmm. He was just so used to people. In the past decade before this event occurred, over 220 alligators had been removed from the Disney properties.
That's a shit ton of alligators.
Yeah. And in memoriam of this little boy, a sculpture was placed on the property, and fences and rocks were placed as a wall, as well as signs about the potential of gators and snakes being in the area, because previously there were no signs.
You know what? And I've actually heard about this case because I had looked into it a little bit before, right? I know that they had pretty much put down all the alligators that they found in that water, which is super sad because I know they were trying to see which one had killed the little boy, but the alligators are part of their natural habitat.
Yeah, like they were just vibing.
Yeah, they were in their home, and not to blame the little boy, which I'm not. I'm just saying, like, when you build a resort around someone's house, especially when that someone happens to be a 7-foot-long alligator, shit's gonna happen.
I think they actually only put down the 2 that fit the size, and they, like, relocated the other 4.
I sure hope so.
Because I know that they relocated the other, like, 220 that were found.
Where do you put 220 alligators?
The Everglades. Everything goes to the Everglades. The Everglades are creepy.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
I wanna know from, like, a big truck. I want to get in a big truck and look.
We were, I went with my fiance, and we were driving, and they were just vibing on the side of the road. Like, they had to put up fences around this one particular road because alligators would just go onto the road, and people would get in accidents with alligators.
See, I'm from Kentucky. We have to worry about deer. I don't know what I would do if I had to worry about an alligator.
I'm definitely going to tell you about, like, the Mr. Watson case one day. That's a good one that happens in the Everglades.
Oh, I assume an alligator.
There were actually no alligators.
Oh,
but I'll tell you about it
disappointing.
one day.
I wonder that resort now, how many precautions they had to put in place because of this. And did anyone get sued?
So I think the family ended up not suing. I don't remember why, but I'm pretty sure the family was like, yeah, no, this was, like, definitely partially our fault. Like, we should not have let our son do that. And they ended up not suing.
I can imagine, like, just the father, the kind of PTSD you get from that. Because I'm sure he reacted at just instinct.
Oh,
he just acted the act.
Fought a 7-foot alligator for his son.
Oh, my goodness. I couldn't, especially me being in the situation I'm in right now. Like, I can't imagine being in that, like, mindset of that dad and having to live with those memories and thoughts. I think about dumb crap I did last week that isn't even traumatizing. No. It was just embarrassing, and I still shiver at night about it. Can you imagine having to fight an alligator for your child? Rest of my life.
Yeah. So the next one was one that I heard about from you, actually, which is the Disney Paris suicides. Disney Paris has become notorious for its employees taking their own lives. Apparently, there are really bad working conditions in this park in particular. It has been open since 1992 and has yet to have a profitable year, which for Disney is insane. Like, Disney's the most profitable company in the world, but this is the only Disney park in Europe, and they have not had a profitable year.
I wonder why. And I didn't live too far from that park. I know people who went to it, and I think they have more of the forgettable stuff there. I don't remember. I didn't go, but I'm surprised considering it's Disney World.
Yeah. And so the parks have had constantly declining visitors, so less and less people are visiting every year, and it is believed that this has led to unsafe work environments and employees feeling pressured, undervalued, and unsafe at work.
You know what? I feel like that's every Amazon employee right now, too.
True. Amazon employees, if you need help, it's okay. We will help you. In 2010, 2 high-profile suicides happened within 5 weeks of each other. The first was a Disneyland restaurant worker who threw himself in front of a train. This happened after he was returning from a 10-month-long sick leave, and he had made complaints in the past about workplace harassment.
So he was on sick leave for 10 months?
Yes.
Oh, teachers here can't even get 2 months.
Another worker, and this one is much more well-known, in particular because of his note. He was also a restaurant worker and a father of 4. He's been identified as Frank L., but that could not be his real name, and he was 37 years old. He scratched, "I don't want to work for Mickey anymore," into the wall of his house before he took his own life. It was the day he was supposed to return from sick leave, and he had had unrealistic goals set by management and had not been given enough staff in order to meet those goals. Another person in that same year committed suicide, but I was unable to find any information out about it. But I believe they were also a restaurant worker. So, like, something is happening in the restaurants of Disneyland Paris that is not being talked about, that needs to be talked about. The following year, another man attempted to commit suicide after he was summoned to meet with his bosses. He poured gasoline over himself and was about to set himself on fire when a coworker managed to stop him. Which, shout out to that coworker, because he risked his own life trying to save this man and successfully saved this man. But can you imagine being called to talk with your boss
and that's your reaction?
Only reaction being like, I can't. This next one is truly horrifying. And I had heard about it previously from another person who covers like true crime and like horrendous events. Basically, this one is about a girl named Deborah Gail Stone. On July 8th, 1974, 18-year-old Deborah Gail Stone died at Disneyland.
Wait, this one actually, they acknowledged this one died on the property?
Yeah, I think so, yes. She was working at a ride called Disney Sings. It had replaced a previous ride and it was set up as a carousel that went counterclockwise against a stationary base.
So like a carousel?
Kind of. It had an outer ring, which was 6 rooms or theaters with dividing walls. The rooms auto-rotated every 4 minutes, and there was space where a stationary wall was set up to and had a little space, and it was open when the walls were not rotating.
So was it like one of those moving theater rides?
Yes, it was like a moving theater ride. At the beginning and end of the ride, a cast member would come in, make announcements, be like, "Thank you for joining us. Okay, goodbye." That was Deborah's role. The attraction opened on June 30th, 1974. And 8 days later, Deborah Stone was the cast member doing the announcements at the beginning and end of the ride. Following her announcements, she stepped behind the scenes to wait for the next room to rotate into place. While waiting for the room to rotate, Deborah either stepped back into, fell into, or attempted to jump from one stage to another and fell into the space between the stationary wall and the moving wall.
Oh, it's about to be like a Pluto situation, ain't it?
Kind of. The walls then proceeded to move as scheduled. And despite multiple people hearing screams, it was assumed that it was either a part of this ride or people screaming on other roller coasters. And the screaming continued as it rotated.
Oh, dang.
An audience member finally told park workers that they had heard the screams, at which point the ride was stopped and Deborah was found. It was assumed that she fell between the wall at around 10:35 p.m. and was not pronounced dead until 11 p.m. So she was back there for 25 minutes as the walls rotated every 4 minutes.
That is literal torture.
Yeah.
And she was only 18?
She was 18.
Not that it matters, the age, but still a really young girl.
She was, apparently super intelligent, had a boyfriend, was getting ready to go to college, was just working this as a summer job to, make some extra money before going to college. And it's assumed that she was crushed and twisted as the walls rotated.
I'm really trying to, I hate to say this, I'm really trying to imagine what this ride looks like. Do you know if it's still open?
So I think it eventually has been closed and shut down because it wasn't even popular. But following Deborah's death, the ride was only closed for 3 days and was reopened on July 11th.
I bet they tried to keep it hush-hush about what happened,
I'm sure. Because of her death, lights were added to the backstage area and the walls were remodeled so that they would break in case something similar happened. So next is Thomas Guy Cleveland. I'm not going to lie, all of these are pretty horrific. So this one also happened at Disneyland, and it happened on June 8th, 1966. At the time, Thomas Guy Cleveland was 19 years old, and he was attempting to sneak into Disneyland. In order to do this, he climbed over 2 different fences, one of which was a 16-foot security gate, and in order to get over it, he had to climb down onto the monorail track. Do you know what the monorail is?
That's the train, right?
Yeah, it's the train that
like
takes you from the parking lot to the park itself. His plan was either to jump or climb down off the monorail once he had walked it into the park.
So wait, that big thing that hovers up in the sky, he was going to climb down from that?
Yeah.
Okay, he misses calling as a rock climber because who has the balls
he
and
also
the
climbed
agility?
A 16-foot security gate.
How do you prep for that? What kind of training do you go through?
All of this to avoid paying entrance fees. Just pay the fee. I get it's a lot of money, but it's going to be better than what ends up happening to him. So as soon as he was on the monorail, a security guard spotted him and started yelling at him, yells that Cleveland ignored. However, if he had listened, he would have realized that the guard was yelling because a train was coming. Eventually, Cleveland climbed down from the rail onto a canopy that was right below the track, but the clearance wasn't enough, and he was struck by the train.
Oh my gosh.
His body was dragged for 30 or 40 feet from where he was struck, and all 4 train cars drove over his body.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine the security guard seeing that?
Yeah, he just had to watch it happen. The driver was unaware of anything being wrong until he felt a bump and the train lost power. And the train ended up having to be towed to the next stop. Maintenance workers had to hose Cleveland's remains off the bottom of the track and train because he had been grinded.
Yeah, like one of those meat grinders.
Yeah, and they couldn't collect all of the little bits of him. So they just had to hose it off.
Oh my gosh.
All because he wanted to avoid paying entrance fees.
Was it worth it? I don't think it was.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was worth it. Just pay the entrance fees and stay alive. Do you know what the people mover is?
Mm-mm.
It's literally just a skyway that goes super slow, I'm pretty sure, and just moves people. My best friend is this is my favorite ride, and I'm why? This is so boring.
Oh, is that for sightseeing? It's one of those platforms?
Pretty much, but it's a train. So there were 2 deaths on the people mover that happened in almost the exact same way. In August of 1967, just 1 month after the people mover opened, 16-year-old Ricky Lee Yama and 2 of his friends were jumping from car to car, on the people mover, which you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to remain seated with your hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times. Everyone knows this. But for some reason, this 16-year-old and his 2 friends were jumping, over gaps.
Being 16-year-old boys.
At one point, Yama attempted to jump between 2 moving cars, right as the ride entered into a tunnel. He misjudged the distance and stumbled, and then fell onto the track. The next train came and ran him over, and he was crushed under the wheels and dragged for a few hundred feet. Eventually, the operator noticed what was happening and stopped the ride, but at that point, it was too late and he had passed away. Almost 13 years later, on June 7th of 1980, 18-year-old Gerardo Gonzalez died in almost the exact same way. He was there for a grad night, which for those who don't know, Disney offers a discount to anyone graduating. And
I did not know that. That would have been,
it's
nice.
only for this one night though. So, like, basically they shut down the park and, like, only graduating students are there.
I'm surprised I'm just not hearing about
this. And it's called
this.
grad night. Well, I mean, it depends on the school, like, if they want to participate.
Oh, so you can't do it, like, as an independent, your school?
I mean, no, I don't think you can. I think your school has to be invited, and then they have to, like, tell you about the... I don't know that much about it. I've only heard about grad night.
Oh, if it's about the school getting invited, hell no, my school would not get invited. Not surprised.
So grad night is they, like, shut down the park, and only, like, high school graduates are there with a few supervisors. What are they called? It's not supervisors.
Those people that watch other people.
Chaperones.
There you go.
With only a few chaperones.
I haven't had one in so long. I forgot the word.
I was like, what is this?
I am a chaperone.
This 18-year-old, Gerardo Gonzalez, was there for grad night, and he was jumping from car to car, the same way that Ricky Yama was. At the end of it, there's like this, at the end of the ride, there's this thing called the super speed tunnel, which is next to the former America Sings building, where Deborah Gail Stone died.
Seeing a trend.
Yeah. So
but the Deborah thing happened years after, right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. No, it happened before. It happened 6 years before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it enters this tunnel, and Gerardo Gonzalez falls between two cars. He was run over, dragged for a few feet, and the operator eventually noticed and stopped the ride. It literally was like the exact, like every source I read was like, yeah, he basically died the exact same way as Ricky Lee Yama. The exact same way.
What do you do at that point? Because there's two people within a short amount of time that have died the exact same way. You can't stop stupidity, but I mean, at some point you feel like you need to put something in place.
Yeah, I think they've definitely put in like way more precautions. The 80s were wild. So those are all of the stories that I have for you today. Again, there were way more deaths at Disney than what I covered. I just had to trim it down so we weren't here for 5 years. Disney, happiest place on earth or shittiest place to die?
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. I'm sure
welcome.
You feel amazing right now, and we're about to eat a big meal.
No, I was reading about Albert Fish, so.
Speaking of which, we're going to be doing one about that in the near future, so if you want to check that out, please subscribe.
Don't want to eat at all for that one. Can tell you that right now.
She gave me a few spoilers, and I have so many questions. I know nothing about this case. So yeah, if you guys want to check out any more of the content that we have, definitely follow, subscribe. We're on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube,
Amazon Prime.
Some other stuff. So if you can find us there, we are Murder and Movies Podcast, rebranded, formerly known as Kinda Girly, which you may still see some of that stuff pop up every now and then. But this is us, new and improved, and talking about people getting, dragged for 100 feet. So if you guys have any suggestions, please let us know. Thank you, Elizabeth, again for doing all that research, and I can't wait to figure out Albert Fish.
You'll hate it.
I'm sure I will. But yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on all our social medias, and we will see you all next time. Bye.